Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Parenting Tools podcast with me, Jordan.
And me, Jason. This is the podcast where two parenting tools talk about the relentless beauty and the hilarious chaos of parenting.
Jason, episode 3.
Episode 3, here we are.
We have been having some quality content come in.
We've had
from listeners,
great content.
And viewers. And if you want to send in your stories, your questions, keep them coming because we're loving them.
Yeah, especially the miserable ones.
See, I like the really funny ones, but you're just laughing at misery.
Well, because I feel like we're almost through some of the misery now, where I can laugh at my own past, but
of course,
actually hearing someone else's pain, it's not joyous, but it's like,
but it is.
It's like, oh, we're not there anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Perspective.
Yeah.
So if you want to send in your stories, please do. You can contact us on Instagram at parentingtoolspod and on TikTok at parentingtoolspod or on email parentingtoolspod@gmail.com.
Amazing.
Sweet, I'm so tired. Sweet, I'm so tired of treating me this way.
Today we have a special guest, don't we, later on in the podcast?
Really excited about this.
Can't wait to introduce him to you. We'll leave it as a little bit of a mystery till now.
Mystery guest.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to wait long. It'll probably even be in the title.
Yeah, it will be.
But so Jordan, last week you left us on a bit of a cliffhanger.
Did I?
You left us on a big cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. Really nice guy.
I think
Old fella.
You had a parenting tip.
I did. Yes.
I've been waiting all week.
This is genius.
Go on.
This is genius. So I want to shout out my boss, David, because he told me, if you're going to use that for your podcast, you need to credit me. So
great.
We were talking about, so he's got teenage kids like that are 14, 16 kind of age.
Okay, yeah.
I'm at the other end of the spectrum with a 9-month-old, as previously said, and a little boy who's nearly 3. So we've not kind of got the device thing going on that we mentioned.
Yes,
last
phones,
time round.
tablets, iPads, just to clarify, if you don't know what devices are. Okay.
Once again, we're clarifying what devices are.
Here we go.
So he said to me, I do a thing that I let my kids have unlimited device use.
Ooh.
He said, so they can go on it as long as they want. So I'm thinking, that seems like a bad thing. But this is the thing. So he said, I let them have unlimited device use, but I limit the amount of charges that they have.
Okay.
So if they want to use it all in the first 2 days,
wow. So it's
they
like,
can.
How long does he do it over?
I don't know. I think it's about a week. But then obviously there's different things like holidays because they're going away on their own and stuff. But he said to me that he limits their use of the charger rather than the phone. And I was like, that's genius.
That is both genius and commitment.
Yeah. So that they've got the independence of, I'm going to manage this resource. And I'm thinking, well, that's transferable skill to money.
Yeah.
Petrol.
Money and petrol.
They're the only resources I use at the minute.
Time.
I use that all the time. So yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Did he mention how it works? Is he satisfied with the outcome?
I think so. He seemed like the fact he was sharing it with me. Seems
confident
and the fact he wanted credit for it.
Yeah.
So
you wouldn't want credit if it was bad.
No. So yeah, I thought that was really, really quite good. And so I was thinking, that would be good to have when our kids are older.
Yeah.
But our kids probably won't charge their devices. Like, they'll probably just charge themselves up.
Oh, do you know what? That's in 10 years' time, you don't know what's going to happen.
No.
They'll just be charged by the energy of fun.
Yeah. Or misery. It's a different kind of charge.
They'll be overpowered.
Yeah, so like I can imagine this is a thing that they'll just walk around with their phones or whatever they're using at the time in their pockets and they'll just come out charged up.
Here's the thing. If any listeners have kids and they've not tried this method, try it for a week and let us know how it goes.
Quality.
We're not responsible for the outcome.
No. At your own risk.
At your own risk. I would love to hear how this goes down.
Yeah, but I thought that was really cool.
That's amazing.
That was really cool.
We've also had some really funny stories come in over the last few weeks.
We've had some great stories.
Jordan, kick us off. Come on.
So this is another colleague of mine. Shout out to my colleagues.
Loving the pod.
Really appreciate it. So this is my colleague Abby. And she said to me from episode 1, when I mentioned about Mila having bruises on her forehead from learning to stand and falling.
Yeah.
She said to me that when her sister, so there's a bit of an age gap between her and her sister, she said when her sister was learning to crawl, she can remember she pulled the desk onto herself. So she just heard this big noise.
Wow.
Her little sister's under this desk, and she said, fortunately, it was quite a light desk. I think she described it as like a drawing desk.
Okay.
So it's quite a thin desk, thin legs, drawer in it. And
it's still a nightmare, isn't it?
Still. So her mum obviously thinks that's a nightmare. So her mum runs in, yanks the desk off her sister, but she does it so quickly that the drawer in the desk slides out onto her sister. Not just onto the sister, but onto her head, onto her forehead.
I feel like a terrible person
So
for laughing.
she's telling me this in the office, and she said she had a bruise the shape of the handle on her forehead.
Before I laugh at it, is she okay?
Yeah, she was fine. She might not be now after hearing this, but yeah.
A bruise the shape of the handle on her forehead.
Yeah.
How devastated would you be as a parent?
Yeah. Oh, you'd feel so bad.
You would feel terrible.
Yeah.
Have you ever accidentally nipped the fingers when you'd cut nails?
Not yet.
Oh my word.
Not yet.
So like very early on when we were first trying to get to grips with like the little nail clippers, I did it a little bit too short, and the screams, I felt bad for weeks. Granted, it's not a draw.
It's not a draw on the forehead.
Draw a little bit of blood though on the finger,
Ooh.
and I was absolutely devastated for weeks. So I can't imagine how she must have felt.
Leanne, so my wife Leanne, if you're new to the pod, she recently, I don't know how she did it. She was playing with Luca and she caught her thumbnail on his chin, and she cut it. Oh. And he still got the scar. This was about 6 weeks ago. So every day I'm checking his scar to be like, is it gone yet? But yeah, she felt terrible. She felt so terrible. I think she caught him and kind of caught his chin.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, like, kids are so like they bounce back so quickly.
Yeah.
And like they fall over all the time, like especially when they're learning to walk. But it's when you do it, you feel dreadful.
Yeah.
And like it's so hard to shake that feeling.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to remind yourself, kids fall all the time. They hurt themselves all the time.
Yeah.
And like that insignificant moment, they're not going to remember it, especially if it's a draw.
Have you dropped Noah?
I don't know. I can't remember. I know there's been a few close calls.
Yeah.
It's like in the very early days, she had terrible reflux. In fact, I remember talking to you about it because you recommended Infocol.
Yep.
Turns out
they can sponsor the pod.
Well, there you go.
That's a product I'm behind.
I'm all for it. I mean, it didn't work for us. Only because... I still take sponsorship. But only because we figured out Noah was allergic to milk, egg and soy.
Oh, wow.
And she was still being breastfed at this time. And so Em had to cut out all of that from her diet. So she had terrible reflux for weeks.
Oh, bless her.
So we had to hold her all night at one stage because she literally couldn't be vertical. And we were so tired that the close calls... I remember once, we would take it in shifts. I wasn't working at the time, Em wasn't working. And I remember waking up and just slowly watching like Noah slip from Em's arms. And I went, Em! She woke up. Noah slipped and Em caught her with her legs.
Go on, Em.
I think that's the closest we've come
Spider-Man.
to dropping. Have you dropped?
I dropped him once, but onto the bed.
Ah.
So I think I was putting him down to sleep, I think, or putting him on the bed. And I got there and he just fell out. So yeah, I dropped, and I still felt terrible though.
Do you know, I have dropped Noah.
Yeah.
And there's video evidence.
Oh my goodness.
She was very small. It was like, you know when they're at that age, they can't keep themselves up.
Yeah.
They can't even sit up. They're literally potatoes and like useless.
Mashed potatoes.
We're like the only mammal that comes out useless. Anyway, I was holding her and we had like this little cool little basket, a metal basket, but like a little cage basket, you know, the decoration for socks or something, just on the floor. It's holding Noah, and she slipped and her head hit the basket.
Oh.
And that was the only thing stopping her from hitting the floor. And like there was a tiny little bruise. I felt horrid for like weeks. She was fine. She was completely fine. But it was just that. Yeah, that's the closest I've come to a full-on drop.
No. And there's video evidence.
There is.
Well, you need to share it. If you're listening on Spotify, this is going to do nothing for you. But we will share the video
We'll put it on.
through the
We'll put
magic
it
of editing. So I've got a funny story from this week.
on. All gone then.
So my office is in our loft,
Yeah.
and I
yeah,
come
right.
down the loft ladder if I need to drink, toilet, whatever. And I need the toilet. So I come downstairs, and Luca must hear the loft ladder. And so I'm at an age now where I'm not being crude. Regardless of what I'm doing on the toilet, I sit down. Just to
Life's
take,
too short.
Yeah, just to take the weight off.
Yeah.
Just to have a little sit down. And so all of a sudden, Luca appears in front of me. He's like, "Hi, Daddy." I'm like, "Hi, mate." And then out of nowhere, he goes, "Do you want a sandwich?" And he pulls out a sandwich. And it's like Dairy Lee or something, like cream cheese. And I don't like cream cheese. Like if it was a ham sandwich, I'd been like, "Yeah, amazing, great." But I was like, "Oh, no thanks." And he went, "Have the sandwich." And he was a bit upset that I didn't have the sandwich. And I'm still trying to process, why have you just offered me a sandwich? Like, where's this come from? Have you got pockets? Like, so...
He's been just storing this
Yeah.
sandwich for the special moment.
And then he gets upset because I don't want the sandwich. So I'm like, no, right, run along kind of thing. So anyway, run along. Let's
Run
say that.
along.
I'm not like a Victorian policeman. Run along. So yeah, I just said, right, go downstairs or whatever. So I go downstairs and I say to Leanne, Lucas just asked me if I want a sandwich. And she said, "Oh, I told him if he finishes his sandwiches, he can watch TV."
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my life,
That is genius.
that's brilliant. And so
That is
it all
quality.
made sense. And then again, he comes up to me, he's like, "Daddy, do you want a sandwich?" But I was like, what a genius.
That is amazing.
I was so proud of him. But yeah.
Proud of the slightly deceptive child. That.
Yeah.
But that's surely a sign of intelligence.
I'm gonna
Claim it as
say,
one.
yeah, I'm gonna claim it. But yeah, it all made sense, and then it made sense why he was upset that I didn't want the sandwich
Because he wanted TV.
He wanted the TV.
That's brilliant. So I've got a question from one of our listeners on the Insta.
Oh,
Someone
yeah.
responded to all of my posts, and in fact, I'm going to read it to you because this is one I've got a question about. I've got a question about their question. So I put out, what is one parenting thing you wish more people talked about? And one of the replies I got was, the 4th trimester, it's real and it can be so hard on mum and dad trying to support. So,
4th trimester.
the 4th trimester. So this is my question. So for the listeners that don't know, my wife gave birth at 28 weeks. That's just a few weeks into the 3rd trimester, I believe.
Yeah, Cara Vorderman, if you're listening,
I need to know. I can't do math.
give us a shout. Or Rachel Riley, either or.
So, but we have no experience of the last part of pregnancy. We didn't go to any antenatal classes. Like, Noah was here. Literally, we booked our antenatal classes, and then the week later, Noah was here. So we have no idea. So my brother and sister-in-law, who have recently given birth, I say recently, a few months ago, they were telling us stuff that we've never heard of.
Yeah.
We've never experienced. And when they were getting ready to go to the hospital and all that sort of stuff, we had no idea of the procedures because we had no clue. The 4th trimester is like one of those things where I feel like I'm completely out of my depth because I barely even know the 3rd trimester. So
Right.
from what I imagine, the 4th trimester is the time after the birth of the adjusting period for the parents, which can be relatable to everyone in very different circumstances. But Jordan, from your experience, what was that like? But also my question to the listeners, if you've experienced this mysterious 4th trimester, tell us about it, because I don't know.
I've never heard of the 4th trimester. Maybe that's ignorance on my part and not doing my research, of which I didn't do very much. I can't lie, because I just thought you'll just learn as you go along, don't you? I've literally never heard of the 4th trimester at all. Our experience of post-birth was really good, and I absolutely loved it. They call it the newborn bubble, which obviously you guys missed out on, and I actually feel really sorry for you that you missed out on that, because I call it the glory zone. When you've got one child that can't move, that's just
The glory zone.
that's the sweet spot right there. So yeah, and you're off work and you're together for the first time as a family of 3, and it's just amazing. But then, obviously, I know that people have very different experiences of that, both men and women. So yeah, I can't really comment on that too much.
So from what I think it's that process or that time, like you're saying, afterwards, where some people have a great experience, but others have quite the opposite. It's like for us, when Noah was here, it was not that baby bubble that you described. So Noah was in hospital for 12 weeks after she was born, and we couldn't spend time with her together. We could only visit one at a time because of COVID, and it was literally, you would have one 24-hour period each, and you weren't allowed to stay at the hospital. So for the first few weeks, we would take it in turns. Em would go in, she'd come home, we'd stay together. Noah would stay at hospital, and the next day I would go in, and it was literally like that for weeks. And so our first experience of looking after her and being with our child was completely alien and not what we'd imagined. By the time Noah actually did come home, the first 12 hours were incredible. It was, we finally got her home after all this time, after all these things had happened. We hadn't had the best start. We thought we were going to lose her multiple times. We finally took her home in the Moses basket, not the whole way home, but she was in the Moses basket. And we had a moment, I remember it, we were just on our bed, Noah was in the Moses basket at the end of the bed, and we thought, we've been through so much, this is so difficult, but this right now is amazing.
Yeah.
But then the next day we were back in hospital again, and it all started from the beginning. And so I can imagine, had it not been the case, that ideally that moment would have been idyllic. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But also from my experience with both my mental health and Emily's mental health when Noah was born, that could also be a nightmare. Because by the time about 6 months after Noah was born, she was finally kind of out of hospital. We were still having to take her in every day for antibiotics and stuff, but she could stay with us. By the time we got to that period, both of our mental health was so shot that we couldn't enjoy it, and so we were literally just surviving. And so when Noah actually did come home, she was probably like more a newborn than she had been the whole time. And so we were all of that for us is such a blur. And so I have no idea what's normal, like the mental health things that we struggled. I have no idea what's normal for most parents or what's completely like just individualistic based on our experience.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, loads of people struggle with the same sort of things that we did. And I imagine that fourth trimester part talks about like that adjustment of life.
Yeah.
When you because your life changes completely.
It does.
Even with the best kind of birth stories.
Yeah.
Like everything changes. So I imagine that's what. Have we got a definition from Google?
So I've Googled it, and it says the fourth trimester is the 12-week period immediately after you've had your baby. Not everyone has heard of it, so I feel a bit better about myself. But every mother and their newborn will go through it. It is a time of great physical and emotional change as your baby adjusts to being outside of the womb, and you adjust to a new life as a mum.
Okay, yeah.
And that is from pregnantybirthbaby.org.au. That's an Australian one.
Wow.
Whatever.
Baby's the same from Australia?
I think so. Just upside down, aren't they? but yeah, I remember speaking to you and saying like, "Oh, how's Noah?" when she was first born.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, "Oh, she stopped breathing yesterday when I was holding her."
Yeah.
And it was just a completely different experience. And I think this is why we're doing the pod. And this to talk about these things, because a lot of them aren't talked about, and a lot of them, like you say, they're just so unique.
Yeah.
So we're going to speak to Sam soon. The three of us are similar ages, have probably similar backgrounds, and we all have kids under 3 years old.
Yeah.
So I've got 2, you've got 1, Sam's got 1 with a second on the way. We're all in a very similar stage of life. But if we were to tell our stories, they'd be so different.
Yeah.
They'd be so different. And that's why we want to get the guests on. But yeah, anyone that's experienced this fourth trimester change, any emotions, let us know, because we can't talk about it.
Yeah, and I think there'll be definitely loads of stuff that comes out of this, that if you just share your story, so many people have a similar experience. Like I've encountered by just sharing some of the struggles that we've had with Noah, and actually just our own lives and mental health off the back of it. So many more people are going, I'm so glad you said that, because I struggle with this too. So if you've got any stories, please do send them in.
So I've just given Sam a mention, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Sam as our first guest onto the Parenting Tools pod. I'm not sure he'll be too happy to be a tool by association.
Oh, it's exciting. No pressure. First guest.
No pressure, first guest. But do you want to introduce Sam?
Here's Sam.
You're not going to say he's a friend of mine and I met him.
I think that's funny.
Sweet, I'm so tired of you. Sweet, I'm so tired of you treating me this way. I'm sick and then I'm...
Well, Sam, welcome to the podcast. Obviously, I know who you are, but can you just do us a favour and tell our listeners who you are, what you've got, your children, that is, and your family setup, all that lovely stuff.
My name's Sam. I have one baby daughter. I say baby, she's 2.5 now. She's Christmas Eve baby, so that is no fun, frankly. But yeah, she's just over 2.5. And we have one on the way. We have a little boy on the way. So I'm sort of somewhere between both of you. I am in preparation for hell on earth. As Jordan quite kindly put it in the first episode, it is tough. So that's what I have. What I do is I have just started working for Cardiff Food Bank. I'm the volunteer coordinator, so I've just started overseeing the sort of 200 volunteers that work and give their time within Cardiff. And I'm also then, I've just gone from full-time to part-time as a church minister in the same movement as you, Jason, as you well know.
Come on, and you're also a reverend.
I am a rev, yeah, that happened. So we share that.
One of the many
We've got
things that we share. We've got a theme going on so far.
Recurring theme of reverends.
First question, and I don't know if this is inappropriate, so tell me if it is.
I'm all game.
Was there a difference between the reaction of finding out that you're having a girl to having a boy?
Who by me or Nia? Nia's
Both.
my wife, by the way. Both. Nia was open that she wasn't happy. Well, not happy, but she was like, "Oh, I really wanted a little sister for Betsan." That's my daughter. And yeah, I was buzzing. Like, I'm just England shirt. That's all I've got in my head, essentially. So I'm just, do you know what I mean? I'm just going to have England shirts for every age group. That just runs up the thing, which is interesting because I've married into a Welsh family who are very patriotic Welsh. My daughter is Welsh, has a Welsh name. So yeah, that's been an interesting one to play out. But he's going to be an England fan. End of.
Amazing. I didn't think that wasn't too controversial, was it? I've always thought like there is definitely, that's why we have like gender reveals, isn't it? It's like there's a difference of like being a girl dad and a boy dad. Absolutely, I absolutely love being a dad of a girl, but also there is something different as being a dad to a boy.
Yeah, I wasn't that keen on having a girl first time out, to be honest with you. I was like, but now I've had a girl, I'm like, oh, I feel the protectiveness and I love it. But now I'm excited to have something different.
I think having a girl first will be to your advantage because from what I know, girls are a lot less mental than boys. So when you've got the newborn and you're trying to do stuff with the newborn, you know, a girl might be a bit more chilled and you can crack on and get some stuff done.
I too have heard it, and the life I live does not support that backing. Our daughter is mental. She was like rolling over from like 8 weeks. She was walking at 11 months. She is adventurous and independent and refuses to let me help with anything and is just non-stop. And now Nia is saying, oh, the boy's not moving as much. So we're hoping, quite frankly, for a chilled, laid-back boy to sort of accompany the nutter girl.
All the best.
Yeah, thank you, bless you.
So Sam, on the podcast, we do a little segment that we've called Daddy Issues, where we talk about the issues that we're facing at the minute as dads, the problems, the little bugbears, the niggles that we're facing. So whilst we've got you, we want to ask you, what is your daddy issue at the minute?
Yeah, so my daddy issues are, I've got a couple. I'm going to go for one. At the moment, shout out to my wife who has shown me how to raise our daughter in a way that creates independence and allows her, you know, everything's within her reach. She can You know, from a really young age, she was putting her own shoes on, she was getting her own plates and forks and things, and she, you know, I mean, everything is allows her to take part. What that means is she is just infuriatingly independent. So I cannot, if she doesn't want my help, she will just go, no, daddy, and she don't have much language, and that's enough. Just no, like doesn't want me to help her do a coat up, doesn't want me to help her put her shoes on, doesn't want me to help her do, won't let me hold her hand, and it's at times, it's just like I am going to flipping do that coat up if it's the last thing I do. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is, and when you're not in a rush, it's absolutely fine. You know what? Muck about, take your time. I don't care if you spill juice over yourself because you want to carry a full glass of juice across the room. I don't. Do you know what? Be free. But when I'm 20, I've got like 10 minutes until I've got to get you to nursery and get to work, and I'm still in my pants. I am done. I'm fried. So yeah, that's my sort of daddy issue. I love on the one hand that she's independent, and I hate on the one hand that she at times she just won't let me help her. So yeah.
Does that like make you feel any? I don't know, any less as a parent, like as a dad? Like my instinct is to like want to care for my daughter and like do all that. Does that make you feel like, oh, they're grown up too soon, or is it just the frustration of if you could just do it quicker, I'll be fine?
Yeah. It's mostly just the frustration aspect of sort of going, I want to just help you out. Like actually when she does stuff and she, you know, we'll do things, I'll turn around and she'll have come back, she'll have picked up her rubbish, she'll have walked over, put it in the bin herself, she'll have gone and, you know, done things. And then I'm like, oh wow, this is like amazing. I see her maturity already coming out, you know, and stuff like that. And I think that's beautiful. But then, yeah, it's more in the rushing moments. And actually I'm learning it's more because I can't control my own emotion, because I'm treating her like an 18-year-old. I'm like, come on, daddy's in a rush. Like she knows what that means. Right, dad. I don't know what 9:30 means for nursery, frankly. Shut up. So yeah, it's more about me really. I love seeing her independent.
Do you think that like a lot of parenting has like been a reflection of your own emotions? And like I find myself like often getting really annoyed about something, or in one of the many midnight wake ups kind of going, is the problem just me? I mean, frankly, sometimes it is the crying baby that won't get to sleep. But like, do you find yourself often asking that question?
Oh yeah, all the time. I think what was I doing? I was doing something recently, and you just sort of go, oh, like no, I've done this. I've created this issue. I'm the one that's, you know, getting frustrated, and then I go, or this is the big one. So when she wants to like just throw a spaghetti across the room, I lose my head, I lose my place, and I'm just like, right, that is it. You know, I'm treating her emotionally like she's 18, and I'm responding in a way that says, why aren't you understand? Like I assume, why aren't you understanding your emotions? Why aren't you communicating them with me? Why don't we sit down, take a breath, and walk our way through to a solution? Do you know what I mean? Like it's a business meeting with a 2.5-year-old. And I think I it's just my expectations. And I think one of the biggest things is that I've realized about myself is that I assumed that kids only got angry when there was something to be angry about, or they only got emotion when there was something to be emotional about. And actually a kid's just a kid and they're learning their way through the world. And I have to be the example. I have to be the one that recognizes how I can approach this. And a big thing is, in a moment of frustration with an adult, I want to take myself away, but recognizing that my daughter just wants to know I love her, even if she's losing her mind. Like, and actually, kids very rarely want you to go into the next room and give them 5 minutes. Like, I'm learning actually my response is to pull away, but as a kid, your response actually you just want to know you're loved, or at least that's what I want to instill in you. That's what I want to instill in her, is that when she's upset, she knows I love her. Not that I'm disappointed or that I'm angry, even if I do feel those things. So I'm learning now to go, right, Sam, take a second, but hug her, be with her. Don't go in the other room and say, right, that's it. You know what I mean? Actually to say, right, let's just get it out, but get it out when I'm here. Get it out when I'm hugging you. Get it out when I'm with you. so that message is communicated. I love you no matter what emotion you're going through.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
one thing we've started to do with Luca, who's 3 this August, is like if we end up kind of raising our voice or shouting at him after a while, is just saying, sorry that Daddy shouted, but this is why, and just kind of explaining that, because it is hard, isn't it? Because as soon as he starts shouting at me, that's suddenly wrong, but he's thinking, well, that's just what you do to me. So it is that kind of, yeah, you're right. It's difficult, and it's just recognizing that they are kids, and really, they don't know what's going on. Like they they haven't quite figured that emotion. Every day they get a new emotion, and they're figuring out what that is. But it's interesting what you say about the business meeting, because like the whole potty training thing is insane. And like I'm saying to him, let's go for a wee, and he's like, no, because he doesn't want to miss anything. And I'm saying, well, we can go for a wee now and take a minute, or you can wee yourself and we can take 10 minutes changing you, getting new clothes. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand time. All he wants to do is play with his toys.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of giving them some leeway, I guess, but also, like you say, just trying to set the example and just loving them really, and letting them know that they're loved.
I find that really interesting, because like one of the conversations that we're having is like when Noah's having a tantrum, because she's been having tantrums for about, I don't know, a few weeks now, but it's that thing of like she doesn't understand what's going wrong, and like when she's having a tantrum about something, like you said, it's just she's just upset and she has no way to communicate that. So the right response isn't to tell her off, because she's already confused. And so it's like we're slowly getting there with some of our like discipline, but the conversation of actually how much do you discipline and how do you do it based on like their understanding, like that for me is obviously something that I'd never thought about before actually having kids, because I just thought, I'll end up just, you just shout, or that's why parents shout. But actually that there's a whole process of, they understand and they learn like a lot slower than I think I was saying earlier, like humans come out so like potatoes, like we're so useless when we're born, like that takes so long for us to like goats or something come out walking after like 30 seconds. And like as humans, like we're potatoes for like so long. But it's like just actually recognizing that takes so long to develop. And then I ask, because I actually find myself kind of, a lot of the emotions that kind of you experience through parenting are a reflection obviously of even like your upbringing or how you've thought, and like our parents were our model of parenting. And then when you've got two people together doing that together, obviously with different parents, it does bring up stuff. Not all the time, it's not dramatic all the time, but there's difference enough to actually kind of go, actually what is the best way of doing this? And that's usually when Emily will refer me to a book. This is the best way. And I'll go, yes it is.
Mate, honestly, it's so true, because I recognise my parents had 4 under 3.5. I got a twin brother.
Wow.
We're the youngest, so they had it was busy. My dad was working away, and so my mum just had these 4 kids under 3.5, trying her best just to do things. And so, I love the way they parented us, but my mum was regimental. We did things then, we ate then, we slept then, we went here then, everything was bam, 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 bam. And so actually something I recognise in my own life is I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't take risks in my life because I wasn't given the space to just sort of explore and freedom. It hasn't computed in my brain, and that's fine, but it can sometimes reflect into my parenting when I'm just like, no, don't do that. And it's like, well, what? Because she's about to jump off a curb or something, but off a step or something at the bottom step, and it's like, I don't just let her jump into the road. Can I just clarify? My parenting is not to allow her to jump into the road.
Yeah, try it.
That's not how it. Yeah, she's alive so far, and so it's like, right, okay, do I want to stop her taking the risk because of the potential outcome, or do I want to allow it to sort of go and happen and flourish, and then have the exploration afterwards? And I think Nia's been a massive help to me for that. Like you said, Jace, my wife is like, every book, every Instagram post, if I have a look on her Instagram, it's just babies, mother and tots, breastfeeding groups. And it's like, man alive, is this all you see? But she's researched so much because she's passionate about it. And so she really helped me recognize not the wrong things that were done in my childhood, but just the way I was brought up and how that could so easily reflect onto my parenting, you know.
That's so good.
Yeah. So you've done it once, Sam. You've been through the whole kind of pregnancy, birth, and I know from having two that I just expected it to be the same second time round. And then you go in, like I even thought, because my wife, the first time round, she started having contractions and went into labor in the middle of the night. So when I'm thinking about the second one, I'm thinking, right, I need to get to bed because she's going to go into labor in the middle of the night. And it just didn't pan out the same way. It was completely different. Yeah. What's your expectations like of second time round versus first time?
Birth. We're talking about birth now.
Yeah.
We had a really tough birth. Excuse me. We had a really tough birth first time round. My wife was really unwell afterwards. We were in hospital for 5 days over Christmas. We went in 24th. We came out 29th. Christmas was gone for us. We're really sort of actually in a really negative time for us, our first birth. Quite a low point mentally for both of us. So, and then the recovery that came afterwards was put such a dampener on our experience of those first 4-6 weeks of parenting. Actually, I sort of have maybe a naively positive, outlook on how it's going to go. We've got, better consultant cover this time and care and stuff. So I'm hoping it will be a little bit simpler. But to be honest, I don't have any expectations. I'm just sort of going in to see how it goes. I haven't really thought about that process so much. Everything is like from the first hour. I haven't even thought about the birth. I'm just thinking about the first hour and how the heck do I get this thing to sleep again? How the heck do I, do you know what I mean? And then how do I do that? And you would talk about it on the first episode where it's like all of a sudden where they say, when the baby sleeps, you sleep. All of a sudden you can't do that because you've got another one. That is like a recurring nightmare I have since I found out we were pregnant. It's essentially just been this, you'll never sleep. It's being whispered over me myself. So yeah, I haven't even thought about birth. I'm all like first day onwards and how the heck that works.
So like you mentioned the first one was really rough. Do you mind, if you don't mind, like expanding on that a little bit? Like what happened?
Yeah, so it was nothing to do with Betsan. Betsan was absolutely fine. It was just what pregnancy did to Nia really, and sort of the after effects of that. I won't go into so much. It's her story to tell as much, but in terms of she was really unwell. She lost an awful lot of blood from her body. She was and it was doubled up that the hospital didn't give us great care. She was just shoved in a ward. We couldn't sleep. They were just told, "So you need to sleep, and that'll make things better." And then it wasn't, and we were waiting. And then breastfeeding became difficult in the first couple of days. And Betsan was tongue tied, so she couldn't latch well. And it was just like one thing after another. And yeah, so we just sort of fought through, to be honest. And I remember on the last day when we got out on the 29th, we just went for a walk off the ward. Nia was really fragile. I just walked her down, and it was just, when we got home, it was just this release and this freedom of like, oh wow, we're home and we can start things now. But as I say, then Nia found breastfeeding really difficult. Her supply was low, and so we found out after 3 months that Betsan was really underweight, and we didn't know because, just to sort of bring into context, she was born Christmas Eve 19. So by 3 months we were in lockdown, COVID. So then no health visitors, no nothing, no family. We're just on our own with a 3-month-old. And all of a sudden, we didn't recognize that she was losing weight, and we had no one to tell us. And so then we tried to start sleep training, and we just had this horrific time where we thought she was fighting it, but she was basically just starving. So that sort of had a bit of an emotional hit really for us, knowing that we did that to her, obviously unintentionally, but. So we had to sort of work through that, and really, to be honest, 0 to 3 months were okay. We were just pulling through. It was new, and we were like, yeah, come on, let's fight this. And then 3 to 6 months were like, this is horrible. This is awful. On our own, no support, and just a baby that wouldn't sleep, wouldn't go down, couldn't latch. And so at 6 months, we were told to put her on solids, and then all of a sudden, things picked up. She slept like 5 hours for the first time. After we gave her like 3 bowls of porridge, because she just kept eating, and it was like, oh wow, oh, this might be possible, this might be livable, and then it picked up then. But yeah, those 3 to 6 months were just dark, like mentally sleeping, and but just being on your own.
Yeah,
so that's what we found difficult.
So tough. And I think so. I've got just kind of a few questions on that, because obviously with everyone's experience is completely different, and like from the stuff that me and Em went through, I have no kind of frame of reference of whether what I went through is normal. And obviously, like you said, like you can't speak on behalf of Nia and I can't speak on behalf of them, but there was a very real journey that I went on. And one of the things, like there's two main questions. The first one is, in the actual birth, this might be not a very open-ended question, it might just be a simple yes or no, did you kind of experience a complete lack of just like a crippling feeling that you cannot do anything? Like, so for example, like when Noah was born in the hospital, I literally could not do anything. Like, it was in the doctor's hands. Em was there for Noah. Like, as a dad, I literally couldn't do anything. As a dad or as a husband, I literally just had to be. Is that something that you experienced? If so, has that affected kind of the mentality of going for a second?
I haven't experienced that in the same way you've explained. And obviously, I know your story pretty well, and yours was, and it's difficult because everything's personal, right? That was our experience, and it was tough for us. But I know what you've been through and are still going through is way, quote unquote, worse than what we went through. So I found, and I don't know if this is going to be encouraging or not for people, but I found the 8 hours that Nia was giving birth the worst of my life. I'm a deeply emotional person, right? So I'm just crying and trying to not show my wife I'm crying. She was like just off it on gas and air, frankly. She loved it. Had a great time. But I found that I've said, like, they were the worst 8 hours of my life. Like, everything afterwards, actually, you were together in it, but I was just watching my wife in pain. So I found that really difficult. What I found when Betsan was born was all of a sudden the medical attention was on Nia. I had Betsan, and it was all the plans you had that never came to be, right? So we didn't have skin on skin because all of a sudden this baby was given to me. I was just in a hoodie, and I was like, my mum was there, and it was just, you're just surviving really. And I'm just and all the uncertainty, is she going to be okay? What's going to happen? We had to get transferred to a different hospital, so there was all of that sort of stuff. So in fact, I walked out of the hospital on my own with my child in the car, driving her on my own to a different hospital. Wow. So that was like this weird experience. And the biggest thing I found was, I didn't fall immediately in love. And I think that was one of the biggest things that people said to me. When that baby's in your arms, you're going to fall immediately in love with this thing. And I was lost. It was just this live thing in my arms, crying, not knowing what to do. My wife's over there, and I'm sort of going, okay, what do I do? And I really, that was my journey until Betsan really started responding, giving something back for the first, for the first 8, 10, 12 weeks, something like that, until really they start to laugh or smile or, any sort of response. It was very realistically, I am keeping this thing alive. That is my job. Do you know what I mean? And I found that difficult because the expectations people gave me were, you're going to love this thing. Like, you are a dad to a girl, and it was going to be the most amazing thing. And if that's what people experience, like, fantastic. But it's just not the universal experience. But people just said, it's going to be amazing. You're going to have a kid, and you're going to hold it in your arms in that moment. And it's like, it was overwhelming. And then even when we got to take her home in the car seat, it was like, that's it now. There's no nurses, there's no midwives looking over us. It's just us looking after this thing.
And they just let you go. There's
so
just
that
no
was
checks.
the big, yeah, just go, right, you're fine, ta-ra. And it was like, whoa, okay, hold on. Like, I didn't know, do I put a vest on and then a top? Do I put, like, what, like, do you know what I mean? I was asking Nia, going, what do I put this thing in? And all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that was my big journey of going, actually, this isn't this heart connection straight away. And that's okay. That's okay. It will come, and it'll come for different reasons at different times. But I guess that unrealistic expectation didn't help me in those initial moments.
Oh yeah, Jordan, what were your expectations of reality like? Were you like immediately, this is amazing, like absolutely head over heels in love, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think first time round, I think our first birth experience was, if we were to write down our ideal situation, that would have been it. Like
Wow.
it was great. Like we're really blessed and we're really thankful for how it went. With Mila second time round, she came out and her cord was around her neck. So like what you said, Sam, you've got these certain expectations of a birth experience. And one of those for me is that you hear the cry. Like you see that on TV, right? You see the woman sweating and screaming, and then you just hear this crying. We didn't hear that second time round. So Leanne was really panicked. And so my job at that time, like where you said, Jace, like you just had to be, my job there was just to reassure my wife that everything is fine. So yeah, I was just like, and we didn't know we didn't know if she was a boy or a girl. So I had a quick look and I said, and we knew the name. I said, Lee, we've got Mila. She's over there. She's great. And you're just waiting for this cry, and it didn't come. And we kind of knew things were going to be different because doctors came into the room second time round, and that didn't happen first time. So they were very different experiences. But yeah, fortunate enough to kind of have that immediate connection with both of them. And I think the fact that Mila kind of needed a bit of attention when she was first born, and then all of a sudden those few minutes, it probably wasn't even a few minutes, it just felt like a lifetime. It was like, she's okay, she's ours, we're fine. And then, you know, she had to stay in for a night, and I had Luca at home for a night, and that in itself helped take my mind off things because I had him to look after. Yeah, very, very different experiences, for sure. But Sam, I just wondered again, you know, you don't have to answer. How was your thought process with going for another one? Like after that ordeal, was it kind of a hard conversation to have?
Yeah, really hard conversation. Because as well, like I can't imagine loving anything else anywhere near the way I love Betsan. So it was like, well, I sort of feel complete in a way. I wasn't, this, oh yeah, we need another one. I think the big thing for me is that brought the conversation along was I don't want our kids really, really far apart. I'd quite like them to be close. And so it sounds a bit crazy, but it was almost like a practical discussion of like, listen, if we want kids this close together, we're going to have to start getting down within the next sort of 3 to 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Like it's going to have to happen.
If we must.
So that was it. Like, and then, you know, obviously we had to cross that threshold of like, okay, at this moment, if it happens, we're happy about it and it's the right decision. And for, you know, for me, it was an emotional thing of what if. I think for Nia, it was a massive decision, about putting her body through it. And you know, some decisions have been taken out of our hands in terms of how the birth's going to go, our second birth, because of what happened with our first one. So that's okay, and we know that people are going to be aware of some of the frailties, really. So yeah, it was a massive decision, and I think people just think, oh, you just go one, then you go two, and then maybe you go three, and maybe you go four, and you know, see how it is. Maybe you stay at two, and like it's such a massive decision. And again, I think maybe an unhealthy expectation of that was just like, oh yeah, just pick a time and go for it, and just, you know, and hope it happens. And it wasn't. It was a huge decision again. Are we going to uproot our lives in a way again and start this process again? And so yeah, it was a massive decision. But yeah, we're excited.
Well, I'm excited for you.
Thanks, mate.
It's going to be great. Well, Sam, we've got no more questions, but we just want to say a massive thank you for your time, but also your honesty. I found that quite emotional just listening to your experiences there. So yeah, we really do appreciate your transparency and your honesty. Thank you so much.
All good, man. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. Literally my new favourite podcast, and I'm a part of it. How about that?
What a guy. Amazing first guest on our Parenting Tools podcast. Thank you, Sam.
Great to hear another voice.
It is always good to hear another voice.
Yeah, especially ours, get a different perspective on things. So we're gonna, like we said before, we've got a load of topics that we don't have experience of that we want to get guests on for, but still we want to hear your responses, your comments, your questions, and your funny stories. So please get in touch at parentingtoolspod on Instagram and TikTok.
And you can also email us at parentingtoolspod@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, hit that little notification bell, share it with your friends and family. This has been episode 3 of the Parenting Tools Podcast.
Sweet, I'm so tired.